All right, so let's go ahead and wrap this up. Back to where we were at. We've got quite a bit done already, as you can see. Okay, so this says solve each equation by inspection. Well, that pretty much means that all we need to do is take the square root of both sides. Okay? So remember this, when you take the square root of a number, there's going to be a plus version and a minus version, right? So that's one thing we need to remember. With x squareds, typically you're going to get two answers. Okay. So again, all we're going to do is we're going to take the square root of both sides here. Something we can write with. So we'll take the square root here. So this thing's going to be lagging today. You can tell already. All right, so we'll break out our calculator. Let's get into the picture here. All right. So then we say, all right, let's do 289. Take the square root of that. So that's 17. Now remember, 17 times 17 is 289, but also negative 17 and negative 17 multiplied together is 289. So then we'll say plus or minus, that's a lazy math guy thing right there, 17. That's our answer. How about this next guy? Can we take the square root of negative 36? Can we do that? What do you think? We could try. Yeah, that doesn't actually work out, does it? If you're not sure, again, you try your calculator, right? And we go 36, oops, clear it, 36 and negative, and then we hit the square root button, and we get invalid input. Boom, boom, boom. Some calculators will just say error, some will say syntax error, different things. But yeah, so this guy doesn't actually work. So if they're asking you, if they've got x squared and they're asking you to take the square root of a negative number, we say, yeah, no solution, right? Okay. So the next one, again, we just take the square root of 155. Now that's not going to be a perfect square, okay? But we can get an approximation here. Go like this. We go, all right. So let's clear out that dreaded invalid input. We do 155, and then divide by, or not divide by, take the square root of. So about 12.45. So plus or minus 12.45. Okay. Now, if they want it as a square root, what we can do is we can look and say, well, are there any perfect squares that goes into 155? Can't think of any off the top of my head, but let's try a little bit. So we can do the prime factorization thing, right? So we'll take 155. Now, it's not a perfect square, but we know we can divide this guy by 5, right? Because it ends in 5. So if I divide by 5, I get 31. Now, 31 is a prime number, and so is 5. Okay. So this guy, you couldn't do any more to it. So they may take an approximation, or they may just want plus or minus the square root of 155. And we can't do anything else to it. So we're good. Okay? But this is a little more meaningful to most of us. I mean, most of us look at the square root of 155 and go, yeah, okay, what? I don't know what that is. So about 12.45. Okay, and then the same thing with the last guy here. Again, just remember it's going to be plus or minus. So again, this is a good calculator thing. Clear it out. Yeah, not bad, right? So 0.64. And then we do the square root. And we get 0.8. So again, plus or minus 0.8. Okay. So yeah, easy and peasy. So of course it always starts off easy like this, and then they throw some monkey wrenches to it and they make it a little bit harder here and there. But not bad. Okay. So let's go ahead and check out the next one real quick. So this has got 5x squared equals 320. Okay, well, if it was 5x equals 320, everybody was saying, well, we're just going to divide by 5, right? So divide here by 5. Okay, so calculator city, here we come. So 320 divided by 5 is 64. Well, beautiful. So x squared equals 64. We know 64 is a perfect square, right? So then x, take the square root of 64, we get 8. Just remember it's plus or minus 8, and I'm rapidly running out of space as usual. Makes sense? Can't see the screen now? Can't see the color? You mean the writing? Too skinny? Or you just can't see it at all? Too light of a color? Okay, we can fix that. Matter of fact, let's do that right now. Maybe we'll do this. And we'll bump up the size a little bit. All right, so let's redo this then. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. Okay, so let's do this then. So again, what we do is we'll divide, maybe we will, you know. Divide by 5. Is that better? So again, we did that, and we said, okay, so x squared is going to be 64. Cool. And then x is just going to be plus or minus the square root of 64, which is just 8. So that's our guy. Now, like I said, I can see my pen is definitely lagging today. Okay, so the next guys, well, next one we need to get the 42 to the other side, right? So add 42. Add 42. Okay, so calculator city. Move from over here. So we do 358 plus 42. And that's 400, and then that's going to be x squared equals 400, right? So then x is going to be the square root of 400. So it's plus or minus. Let's go take the square root of 400. And it's 20. Fabulous. Okay, so the last one's kind of the combo platter, right? How do you tell the divide or add? Well, up here, when we got a number next to the variable, that means multiply, right? Okay, so when we're solving stuff, what we do is we undo what they did, okay? So over here, we're multiplying by 5, and in order to do the opposite of multiplication, that's division, right? So that's what we do there. Now this one, what did they do? They subtracted 42. We're like, oh, no. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to add 42. So that's why we added there. So whatever they're doing, do the opposite of it. We're undoing what they did. Okay? Cool. That's a great question, though. Because, you know, like I said, I guarantee if you were wondering that, Taylor was probably wondering that, or maybe Gabe. You know, they might have been wondering the same thing. So not only do you help yourself by asking that question, but you help other people that are here. So that's fantastic. So next guy. Over here, they said, well, we're going to subtract 18. We're like, no. Forget that, man. We're going to add 18. That's just how we roll around here, okay? So I add 18 to both sides, and of course I'm rapidly running out of space, but let's go ahead and do our calculator thing. So we'll bring him up, and then we do 82 plus 18. So that's going to be 100. So now I've got 4x squared equals 100, right? So they multiply by 4, like, oh, no. We're not going with that, We're going to divide by 4, right? And I'm jumping all over the place with this. So then I get x squared equals 100 divided by 4. Back to here, we got our 100, and we say divide by 4, and 25. Beautiful. All right, so x squared equals 25. So again, we take the square root of both sides, and x is going to be, square root of 25 is 5. But remember, there's a plus version and a minus version. So that's our guy. I know I kind of jumped all over the place with that one. Yeah, 5. You got it, Chloe. Okay. All right, so we good there? All right, so let's move on. All right, so this says, find the value of c that makes the expression a perfect square trinomial. Write the expression as a binomial square. Ooh. Okay, so this is really the basis for what we call completing the square. And we do the same thing every time, okay? So here's what we do. We take the number in front of x, in this case 18, all right? We take the 18, we divide him by 2. That's just automatically what we do. Whatever that number is in front of the x, we divide him by 2. Right? 18 divided by 2, that's 9. Then we take that answer and we square it. So 9 times 9 is 81. So 81 is the c value. So this guy is now going to be 81. So we've got x squared plus 18x plus 81. And by doing this, what happens is then we get something that looks like this. We're going to have x plus or minus some number squared. Now, the useful hack here is that the number that we want to put in there is the number after we divided by 2, which was 9. It's positive 9, so that means the plus 9 goes right there. Okay? So if you take x plus 9 and square it, you will get back x squared plus 18x plus 81. So the whole technique is to come up with a number that we add on to the end here that turns it from this to this. That's what we're trying to do. Okay? So next guy, same thing. And bring the negative sign with it. So we've got minus 6. We divide by 2. That gives us negative 3. Now, whenever you square a number, whether it's positive or negative, your answer is going to be positive. Okay? So negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. So the number that goes here is going to be positive 9. Okay? And then to get it in perfect square form, we just say x, and then take the number, including the sign, after we divide it by 2. So x minus 3 squared. That's it. Okay, next one's a little bit more of a pain in the butt, I'll be honest, because it's an odd number. And what happens with an odd number when you divide it by 2 is you get fractions. I know, great. Okay, so we've got minus 15 divided by 2. Okay? So that's going to be minus 15 divided by 2, unfortunately. Then we have to square that guy. So negative 15 times negative 15 is 225 positive. You can check me on that, but I've done that problem a few times. And then the bottom is 2 times 2 is 4. So that's the number we're going to add on here, ugly as that may be. But it doesn't really matter, because then we're just going to put it into this format, right? And we're going to have x, and then use this number here, minus 15 over 2. And if you prefer, I don't care personally. The math guys tend to want to stick with the fractions, but if you took negative 15 divided by 2, you get negative 7.5. So yeah, if we did that, so we clear this out, we go 15 negative divided by 2. That's minus 7.5. And then if we square it, we get 56.25, which is the same as taking 225 and dividing it by 4. Ta-da! Okay. So we would prefer to see an even number when we do this kind of stuff. In this case, not so much. All right, so the last one. Get a little bit of room down here. I always cram too much stuff on my slides, don't I? I tend to do that. All right, let's try some purple for today. So again, take this guy here, divide him by 2. How do we get the 22.5 and the 4? Okay. So again, we squared this guy, right? So the top is 15, negative 15 times negative 15. That's the 225. The bottom is 2 times 2, so that's 4. Okay? So yeah, we just squared it. Is that better? Yeah, like I said, the fraction makes it a little more of a pain. I get that. Okay. So then this guy here, we're going to take the 12, or 20, yeah, the 24 and divide it by 2, we'll get 12, right? So 24 divided by 2 is 12. Then we square the 12, and that gives us 144. And that's the number that goes right here. So that 144 is going to be right there. And then again, remember what we do is then we say, okay, so the reason we did that is we want some version of x with a number and then square it. And that number is the number after we divide by 2. That's the 12. So this just becomes plus 12. Okay, let's bring up an extra screen so we'll make sure we got that down. And I'll show you what's going on here. All right, hang on, where's my cursor? Hello, cursor. Here it is. Okay, so that one again, we had x squared plus 24x. And we want to figure out a number to go here. So we said you automatically divide by 2. That's just what we do. Okay. And then we got 12. We squared 12. 12 times 12 equals 144. Okay. So then this is going to be x squared plus 24x plus 144. Now we could just do the normal factor stuff, or we could remember that when we divide by the 2, that's when we get that 12. So then you have x plus 12. So we take and use that number squared. Okay. And if you want to see if that actually works, you do x plus 12 times x plus 12, and then we FOIL. Okay. So x times x, there's x squared. Right? And then I do x times 12, that's plus 12x. Right? And I do 12 times x, that's another plus 12x. And then finally, we do 12 times 12 is 144. Put these two guys together, 12 and 12 is 24. This is the reason we take this number here and divide by 2, because notice this 24 when we were multiplying was two 12s added together, right? So that's how we come up with the 12, was we took the 24, divided him by 2, and then got the 12. Because that 12 is going to appear twice, because again, this is the math guys being lazy. And they don't want to write x plus 12 and x plus 12. They're just going to write x plus 12 and put the little 2 there. And assume that you understand that that just means we're going to multiply x plus 12 together twice. Okay, that's the whole point of exponents. It's math guys being lazy. Good. So that leads us into the completing the square thing. Let's go ahead and do that. Sweet. All right, so it says solve each equation by completing the square. So step 1, we need variable guys on one side, number guys on the other side. Well, they did that for us. Check. Okay, next thing we do is like the problems we were just doing. I've got x squared plus 18x, and then I'm going to come up with a number to add here, and it's always positive, by the way. And over here we got the equals 24. So again, the way we come up with that number, little side calculation, we go, I forgot the x here, hang on. Yeah, there's an x right there. All right, so take the number in front of the x. Once I get this thing to right, that would be fantastic. So take the number in front of the x, which is 18, divide by 2, and we get 9. And we take the 9, and we square it, and we get 81. And this thing is lagging hard today. There it is. So that's the number we want to add to both sides. So we're going to add 81 here and 81 here. Because you know how it is in algebra. If I add 81 over here, that 24 sitting on the other side, going, wait a minute, man. He got an 81. I want my 81. Where's my stimulus? Hand it over, right? Fine. Here's 81 bucks for you two. Okay. So again, the reason we come up with this 81 is we want this thing in this format where it's x with some number squared. And that some number happens right after we divide by 2. So this will be plus 9. Okay? And then that equals 81 and 24. It's Thursday. I'm feeling way too lazy to add that in my head, so here we go. 24 plus 81. 105. All right, so we've seen the square root of 105 before. The square root of 105 is pretty much the square root of 105. Well, it's going to be anyway. So that equals 105. All right, so we're solving for x, right? So we don't like the squared thing. It's just kind of a pain, right? So we say, all right, well, we need to get rid of that squared. So we're going to square root this guy. So immediately the 105 starts screaming, hey, man, I want to get square rooted too. All right, so then when you square root this side, we just get this stuff. So we just get the x plus 9, right? And then over here, we're going to get equals. Now remember, when you take the square root of a number, there's going to be a plus version and a minus version. So plus or minus the square root of 105. And the square root of 105 is a little bit more than 10. Because 10 times 10 is 100. This is 105, right? So it'll be a little more than 10, just to give you a vibe of how much that's going to be. Okay? And then our last move, since we're solving for x, is this is x plus 9. They added 9. What do? We do the opposite, right? We subtract the 9. Okay? So then for our final answer, we get x equals negative 9 plus or minus the square root of 105. And you can just leave it that way. Okay? And that's two answers, because that's minus 9 plus the square root of 105. And then that's minus 9 minus the square root of 105. And that's it. So completing the square is pretty much an option when things don't factor pretty. And it got harder, doesn't it always? We start off kind of easy, and then it just kind of gets, it gets progressively harder. And that's pretty much the story of math, isn't it? But we can handle this. But I know you're sitting there thinking, well, just when I thought it was safe, this comes along, right? All right, so let's go ahead and check out another one here. All right, so same thing. We've got variables on one side, number guy on the other side. Fabulous. So we say x squared minus 10x plus some number to be determined equals 46 plus that same number to be determined. And how do we determine it? Well, we take our number in front of the x, right? Standard operating procedure for this kind of stuff. That's minus 10. So that's minus 10 divided by 2. So that's minus 5. Okay. Then we take our minus 5 and we square him. So minus 5 and minus 5 is 25. So we're going to add a 25 here and the 25 here. Fabulous. We'll get there eventually. There we go. All right, so again, the reason we do that is this will factor into this format here. Right? So it's going to be x with a number squared. But with a number is right after we divide it by 2. So that's negative 5. So we pop him in there. That's why bringing the sign along is kind of important. Equals that. And then on this side, we've got 46 and 25. So we go 46 and 25. That's 71. That's an ugly number. Okay. So then we're going to solve for x. Now we've got all that set up. So we go ahead and square root over here, square root over here. This just gives us x minus 5. And that equals plus or minus the square root of 71. We're just going to leave that guy alone. Okay. So that answer is somewhere between 7 and 8, probably a little closer to 8. Okay, and then our last step is we need to get the negative 5 out of here. So they said, hey, we subtracted 5. We're like, yeah, well, we're going to add 5. That's how we roll around here. So we've got x equals 5 plus or minus the square root of 71. And yes, that is our answer. Fugly as that may be, fugly, of course, is a technical term. Right? And again, like I said, if you want to vibe for 71, if we square root it, 8.42. So as we predicted, something between 7 and 8. Okay. So we get that 8.42, if we add 5 to it, so our one answer is going to be 13.4. And then we subtract the 5 to get back to our original. Then we subtract 5. And the other possibility is, so it's about 3.4 or about 8.4. Okay? So that's how we do that. If you want actual answers, that's all you have to do. Is take 5 and add the square root of 71, and then take 5 and subtract the square root of 71. Beautiful. All right. Okay, we're starting to get short on time. Let's go ahead and we're completing the square. I thought we had some quadratic stuff here. Never got that far. Okay. Well, we're going to do this one with a quadratic formula. Okay. So So do equation by quadratic formula. We'll just put quad, we know what we're talking about. Okay, so that's this guy. So we've got x equals minus b plus or minus. I'm going to need some room here, so I'm getting rid of the quad thing. Forget it. Never enough room. All right, so b squared and then plus or minus. Come on, square root. Where's it going? Give me one of those days I can tell. Yikes. One more time. Plus or minus b squared minus 4ac. I never make this thing long enough. Over 2a. Again, I'm not interested in you memorizing the formula. That's what we have Google for, right? Okay. So then to figure out a, b, and c, we can't have this guy over here. It's got to be equal to 0, so I have to bring him over there. But that's easy. All I have to do is add 39, right? You can move any term from one side to the other. So this negative 39, if I want to bring him over to the other side, all I have to do is switch the sign. So I've got x squared plus 22x plus 39 equals nada. One of these days. There we go. Equals 0. Okay. So there is no number in front of the x. So that means this guy's 1. That's one of those, little secret handshake things they have in math, right? So in this case, a equals 1, b equals 22, and c equals 39. Okay? Then we just plug it into the formula. So b is 22, minus b is minus 22. And then plus or minus 22 squared. I don't know exactly what that is. I have some idea, but I don't know exactly. Come on. Wow. And then minus 4 and a, which is just 1, and c, which is 39. Okay? All this crap goes over 2 times 1. We might need an extra slide for this guy. All right, so let's start with this. We're going to do a little side calculation. So we're going to take 22 and square it. That would definitely call for a calculator. So we go 22 squared, 484. All right, so our little side calculation says it's going to be 484. 484. All right, so next up, let's take care of this part here. So multiply these 3 guys together. So I've got minus 4 times 1, which we don't really have to do the times of 1, right? So minus 4 times 39. So we go clear it. 4 negative times 39. So that's minus 156. All right, where's it at? So minus 156. Okay. So 44 minus 156, we need to add the 484 back in here. Of course, I didn't do that right. 484. So that's 328. Okay. So then we're going to have x equals negative 22 plus or minus the square root of 328 and all that stuff over 2. Okay, so now the next part of this is we need to see if we can reduce that square root of 328. So let's do that. Let's just work with that part for a second. So with the square root of 328. All right, so I think I can divide that guy by 4. Let's try that first. So 328 I divide by 4. That's 82. Okay. Well, it can't divide by 4 again. Can't divide by 9. Can't divide by 16. If you can't divide by 4, you can't divide by 16, by the way, because 16 is 4 times 4. 25. Yeah, I think that's it. So that's as good as that's going to get. So this could be the square root of 4 times the square root of 82. So that's just an ugly number. The square root of 4 is just 2. So then this just becomes 2 square root of 82. All right, so back to our regular scheduled program. We've got minus 22 plus or minus. We turn the square root of 328 into the square root of 2. Or, excuse me, not the square root, just the regular 2 times 82. And then all over 2. All right, so the useful part about this is they're all even numbers, which means I can divide everybody by 2. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. So minus 22 divided by 2 is negative 11. That one cancels, that one cancels, so I just get negative 11 plus or minus the square root of 82. And then equals x. So the quadratic formula and completing the square are for quadratic expressions, shall we say, or equations that don't factor nicely. So these guys don't play well with others. Okay, so that's our guys. All right. And on that happy note, you are free. So I appreciate you guys showing up. We'll start with chapter 10 next time. And we'll see you then. I already got a 10, so we're good.